Welcome to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast, your guide to future tech trends and innovation in a language you understand. Now, over to your host, Neil Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. Now, as regular listeners will know, with this podcast, I'm on a bit of a one-man mission to look at the tech behind the buzzwords and highlight real-world use cases of how technology is bringing us all together and removing inefficiencies that previous generations just accepted rather than do anything about. And I know that you're all probably sick of hearing words such as blockchain and crypto, but for non-believers of this transformative technology, I'm here to show you real-world use cases of how we're on the verge of something quite exciting. And if you missed the arrival of the internet back in the 90s and everyone's shouting that it's just a gimmick, it's a fad that will disappear, this is your chance to be on the right side of history. So today, I want you to think about something that you've probably never considered. The life cycle and journey of every food, every product, and even medicine that you've consumed in your life. And then think about all the middlemen, the regulation and complex aspects of supply chains that we all just take for granted. Step forward Ambrosus. And Ambrosus is a blockchain-powered IoT network for food and pharmaceutical enterprises that enables secure and frictionless dialogue between sensors, distributed ledgers and databases to optimize supply chain visibility and quality assurance. Despite those complexities, their mission is fairly simple. It's to set a global standard for decentralized supply chain management and provide quality assurance to enterprises in IoT ecosystems. This is one of just a few projects out there that I'm genuinely excited about because there is a real-world need for this technology, and the scope for the entire food and pharma industry is huge. So buckle up and hold on tight as I beam your ears all the way to Switzerland so we can speak with the founder and CEO of Ambrosus, Angel Vassetti. So a massive warm welcome to the show, Angel. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Yes, so my name is Angel Vassetti. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Ambrosus.
So to some people listening that are outside of blockchain or the crypto space, they only hear buzzwords and often fail to see the value in projects. But with this podcast, I'm on a mission to help educate people on how technology can solve real-world problems. So before we talk about Ambrosus, can you just tell me the kind of problems that some of the biggest businesses and brands are currently battling when it comes to the supply chain and why it is so desperately in need of an upgrade and ensure that it's fit for this new digital era that we find ourselves in?
Yes, in the supply chain area, there are a lot of questions pertaining to the quality of the product, where it comes from, what happened to it throughout its life cycle, is the product real or not? So this brings a bunch of problems for companies that they currently do not have proper means to solve. So, for instance, there is increasingly every year a larger and larger number of scandals in the food industry about the mislabeled products, where the information on the package doesn't correspond to the truth. And it can be either intentional fraud or simply careless handling of products. But every year, the number of these scandals is increasing. So last year, for instance, in the US alone, the damage to the industry has been about $55 billion in terms of mislabeled food. So that's just only the financial damage. There's also, of course, the social cost, where people are consuming products that are of low quality, or in the case of medicine, they may simply consume counterfeit products. So right now, this is a major problem for multiple stakeholders in the supply chain. It's a problem for, obviously, the manufacturers. Why? Because a lot of, especially the biggest companies, their brand value is built on reputation, built on assurance of quality for the consumers. And for the largest companies in the world, their brand values are in billions, sometimes tens of billions of dollars. And what happens when there is either improper storage of products or unclear traceability or simply fake products, there is a big damage for the brand itself. Because when the consumer is getting a bad product, they look at the package and they associate it with the company that they're buying. So this creates, of course, a huge pain for these companies. They're trying, of course, to fight counterfeiting with different means. But it's very difficult, especially in the food sector where, food itself is not a very expensive product. So there are not that many advanced and sophisticated means for companies to enforce kind of quality assurance and proof of origin. So these problems, basically, they all are linked to the same problem. There is no trusted data that tells you the life story of a product that you can trust. So a reliable source of truth. And this is exactly what blockchain can solve. And importantly, if it's a unified platform, then you're solving the problem of data silos being in different parts of the supply chain. Because what happens now is data at different stages of the supply chain is usually either it's not recorded at all or it's recorded and stored locally, but there is no exchange of information and there is no kind of unified path for the data to follow. So you cannot just have, let's say, the product arriving and you can track back the data all the way to the beginning. Why? Because the data is currently in different smaller silos. So these are the big problems that the companies are facing, and it costs them big amounts of money, as I mentioned earlier, but also they actually lose opportunities to have more insights into how their supply chains are operating and improve their efficiency.
And that's exactly what excites me about Ambrosus, because it's that you guys are actually building a specific solution that provides quality assurance and increased track and trace logistic benefits to the food and pharmaceutical industries, to name just a few areas there. And many people listening will be blissfully unaware that these industries have trillions of dollars in value. Huge inefficiencies and fake medicines or rotten food, for example, can actually be responsible for people losing their lives. So can you tell me how Ambrosus is actually tackling these problems head on, and maybe provide an alternative vision of our immediate future that will help people listening visualize and maybe paint a picture of how much of a game changer you guys are creating here?
Just to illustrate how we solve these particular problems of rotten food or counterfeit medicine that you mentioned, I will just make a mini walkthrough to how we approach these issues, how the system tackles it. So the moment when you produce a batch of medicine, for instance, there is a so-called digital asset that is produced in our blockchain. So the digital asset is nothing else than an identifier for the product. So it can be a string of digits and letters that actually corresponds to the unique identity of the product. And it's fairly similar to a wallet on the blockchain. When you open a wallet, you also get a unique number of numbers and digits. So you get this unique identifier for the product at production. So there is serialization involved. And serialization, of course, you can apply it to either to a pack, or if it's an industry where products are they're cheaper, then you can apply it to a bigger unit, for example, for a container or for a pallet. So once this identifier is produced, it's linked to the product in the form of a QR code or barcode or RFID or a sticker. And then the product starts moving throughout the supply chain. It moves to distribution, warehouses, and finally reaches a pharmacy or a retailer shop. So what happens is we record the second kind of transaction that we call events. Events is any sensor-generated data about a product, whether that's temperature, location, humidity, weight, or any other parameter. But importantly, it's linked to a particular identifier. So it records information about a particular product. And then when the end consumer receives it, they can see the full history of the product and what happened to it. Moreover, we can actually set up the automatic tools using smart contracts where, for instance, you can pre-program, if something happens, immediately return the product. For instance, if the medicine is transported and the recommended temperature is 4 to 6 degrees Celsius, you can program that if the temperature is up to 2 degrees outside of this recommended range for longer than 1 hour, you reimburse the buyer immediately. So you can have the sensor recording data every 20 minutes, and that means that if it's more than 3 times in a row when it records the temperature outside of the range, it immediately reimburses the products. So we are talking here about 2 key aspects: data immutability provided by the blockchain that gives more trust to all the parties involved, because they all know no single party can manipulate or edit the data. So usually distributors, obviously, they're very incentivized to cover up any bad things happening in the supply chain. They are willing to, delete the data or change it and so on. Here, all parties can be sure that's not going to happen. And the second part is, of course, the smart contracts that can automate all this stuff. So they can significantly decrease the amount of time that companies spend on monitoring the quality and so on, because now they can actually literally have it an automated tool. So this is how we tackle it for these two industries. And we specialize in food and pharmaceuticals because these are life essential products. So, and the quality assurance techniques and traceability is actually, there are a lot of similarities. The difference, of course, being that the pharmaceutical industry is a lot more regulated. So there are a lot more verifications that we need to go through, and approval of different regulatory bodies. For food, it's a bit easier, but all the mechanisms are fairly similar. And the vision we have for the immediate future is simply to have the ability, we've recently released a video where we showed how this works, and we have this app already live. But basically, where a consumer could simply take a mobile phone and scan the product and get all the information about it, but not just in a pretty user interface where things look shiny, but actually having the blockchain as a guarantor of the data integrity. So this is the ultimate vision, that every single consumer is empowered, and that companies are also using this system because they want to prove either to the end consumers or to the governments that it's not just beautiful words in their advertisement, but actually it's proper quality of food and guaranteeing of traceability of items. So we want basically all the consumers to be able to really know where their food or pharmaceuticals come from.
So I'll actually put that video on the blog post that accompanies this podcast, just so people can see exactly what you mean there, because it really is a fantastic thing that you're creating. And if you look at the crypto marketplace, currently there are over 1,800 tokens or projects that all claim to one day change the world. But you guys seem to be so much different. And when I did a little research on you, I mean, you've got one of the most impressive teams that I've seen in the blockchain space. And my first thought was that you're assembling a bit of a dream team here from right across many industries, and how you can actually create meaningful change. But can you tell me more about your team and why you're so excited about what you can all achieve together?
Yes, so the team, we right now have around, I think, close to 60 people on the team. So it's a fairly large team. And we have a division between microelectronics people and software and blockchain. So on the technical side, of course. So Ambrosus itself, actually, the platform consists of three major parts. There is blockchain. There is distributed storage. We're using distributed storage because sensor-generated data can be large, and that's too big for the blockchain itself to handle. So we have a distributed storage in parallel. And the third part are protocols that communicate to sensors. So because we have three different components in our platform, we have teams who are coming from different fields. So, and especially the difference between hardware and software development is significant. In terms of having top people on board, I guess the approach we have is simply hire the best. It's a monumental task we're tackling. It requires a lot of work, a lot of effort, and it's fairly complex. So we do want to make sure that we've got the best and the most motivated people on board. And of course, one of the key things for us is to see what experience somebody has, what has the person achieved, but also importantly, whether they're still hungry to achieve more. So some of the parties you mentioned actually, so it's basically several people from the team who are helping us on the technical architecture. We've got also people from Nestle, but importantly, we've got also, for example, Dr. Vlad Trifa, who is a co-founder of Web of Things. It's one of the largest protocols in the world for IoT communication. And previously, he was a co-founder for a company called Everything, where they built IoT systems for supply chains of some of the largest companies in the world. If I'm not mistaken, they had Louis Vuitton, for example, and General Electric amongst those companies. You can check on the website in the profile of Vlad Trifa, there is an exact list of companies. But basically, people who have built big platforms for multinational companies, so who can build industrial-grade solutions. So yes, this explains why we're building, as you call it, the dream team, because the dream itself is pretty big, and therefore you need the team who is able to deliver.
Absolutely. So if we just zoom out for a moment, we know what the problem is, we know how you plan to fix it, and you've got the dream team in place. But I suppose for many people listening from the outside in, it feels like the real adoption and industry partners are the final missing pieces to this jigsaw. And I appreciate you're probably locked down to NDAs at the moment and cannot reveal too much this moment in time. But can you offer any teasers around any potential partners that you're pursuing or that you've secured?
Yeah, so right now, for instance, we have delivered a platform for tracking and quality check of products for one of the largest food retailers in Europe. So we have basically started, we've been collaborating with them, I think, for close to 2 years, actually. And right now we've delivered another product, and they were very happy about this. So I'm hoping that that one will be, it can play a double role. First, it will demonstrate to others what we've built for a large company that has actually now deadline anyway for at least 5 partnerships to become public by the end of October. So basically, the wait will not have to be too long. The business team have to deliver it by nearly all means possible. Because, I mean, as I've just mentioned to you, so with that food retailer in particular, it took us literally 2 years to get this, delivered, executed, and accepted. And on our side, we're working pretty fast. But when you're dealing with large companies, especially when you're dealing with supply chains based in multiple locations, sometimes in different continents, of course, things are not as fast as the crypto community expects. And crypto, I think everybody's used to, almost like a reality show speed of development. Like every day there's something exciting. In practice, it's just a lot of hard work, sometimes boring work in the background, where you're simply courting a large corporation and pushing them for adoption of your technology. And importantly, usually it's difficult enough to kind of get the technology adopted in itself. But when you also have the stipulation that, you have to make it public because we've got the community who's waiting, then it becomes yet more of a challenge. And in the pharma sector, it's even more difficult because the pharma industry in general, I perceive it as a highly secretive industry. They absolutely don't want to communicate anything. Many of them don't want to put any data, so they want to be strategic. They are afraid of competitors or of some other actors finding more information about them. So I would say it's interesting to see how working with these companies is, whilst having, for example, the community who want to see more about the development and adoption, that's a pretty big challenge. So from that perspective, what we're working on right now is to develop a value proposition that is more publicly oriented. So not just to make a value proposition of, this is supply chain tool that can improve your operations and efficiency, but we're also making a stronger bet on the use cases where our technology can be a big driver for sales and marketing. So especially in the food sector, that's very relevant. There are a lot of consumers who are demanding new tools to verify the quality of their food, who don't trust the advertisement anymore, and who are sick of all these food scandals and so on. A lot of companies see an opportunity for us to develop, to use our system as a marketing and sales tool for their products. And of course, if we take that approach, then by default, they can make it public. So this is now, we're making kind of a stronger push on that front.
It's so true what you're saying there. And I do think there is a certain level of impatience in all of the communities in this space. But like you said, there's so much hard work that's going on behind the scenes. And it's not all about big announcements all the time. So if we are looking forward, what are the other hardest challenges for Ambrosus moving forward, both in the short term and the long term?
I would say hiring is always difficult. Hiring is difficult, I think, for every single startup, but hiring in a situation like ours is a double challenge, because we have to scale up very fast. We are expanding. We have multiple locations, and we do have, of course, very ambitious timelines. And so far, we have delivered on every single kind of milestone, and we've been on schedule. But what I would say is, yes, getting more people on board very fast is a huge challenge. So in general, we have now increased the team, as I mentioned. So we were about 8, I think, just at the beginning of this year. So now we're close to 60. So this has been tough. And very often you take kind of the best option available, and that doesn't necessarily work out well. So I would say that simply human resources management and getting resources, the relevant resources, the ones you need very fast, is a tough challenge. Another part that is, I would say, in general, for the blockchain part or crypto and blockchain, they're kind of always together, is simply operating a business in this area is very volatile. So just like the markets are volatile, but here I'm not talking about the markets, I'm just talking about actual operations. They're also very volatile. There's a lot of scam in this industry. And here again, I don't talk about ICOs. I talk about any potential partners you might have, any service providers. Everything with the word blockchain or crypto in it attracts adventurers in the bad sense of that word. But from that perspective, simply doing due diligence on your potential partners and so on is very difficult. And I mean, we've had quite a few partners we've brought on board for different services. I won't point fingers, but the community of ours knows kind of what situations I'm talking about. And it's very difficult because you very often have a few options on the table. You don't feel good about any of those options, but you do need the service to be delivered. And it might be too challenging to get somebody in-house to do it for you. So you just go with kind of what you believe is the best option available, but they may or may not be good enough. So actually they may turn out to be the total net negative. You know, when I'm assessing the value of anything in the company, I'm always looking at the total. I say, is this collaboration a total net positive or a total net negative? And very often turns out that it's a total net negative. So this is also a difficult part. And also, if we're talking about we're scaling up fast, we need services, we need partners and so on very fast. So we're kind of under time pressure. But nevertheless, finding the right party to contract with is also very difficult. So yeah, this stuff, and again, in the background, to the external observers, these challenges are not visible, but internally there's a lot of stuff that we're working on that's pretty time consuming and exhausting as well. But nevertheless, we're getting there. And as the industry is getting more mature, hopefully also the service providers and other stakeholders will also move ahead. And I would say the third challenging part is the whole, once again, kind of uncertainty for the whole crypto industry vis-a-vis the other stakeholders, vis-a-vis the banks and vis-a-vis the large corporations. So it comes back in a lot of discussions that basically they are not sure how cryptocurrencies are going to get regulated. All the regulations, I would say, so far, they've been focused on one particular application, which is ICOs and, crowdfunding and so on. This has been the major attention of most regulators. But there are also other areas for existing businesses where it would be great to have more clarity on, what things are allowed, what things are prohibited, how it should work, and so on. Because even if for operating the company it's fine, actually when you're approaching any big partners who might also be reputationally sensitive, they're always asking, well, how does the crypto fit? We don't have regulations internally about the cryptocurrency. And actually, this is why we've developed, for example, the bundles, the transactions on AMB are priced in dollars so that the companies we deal with, they don't have to worry about the whole crypto part. They say $12 for you, it gets converted to Amber in the background, on the network. But from your side, it's just a fiat payment. But nevertheless, a lot of them are asking, okay, it's a blockchain. Who owns the data? Where are the nodes? How is it going to be compatible with regulations? So all of this regulatory stuff, and even having a bunch of lawyers, which is not a very cheap pleasure, by the way. This is also a major part, of course, that you want to make sure you're compliant. You want to make sure you're doing things right. And you have to consult constantly a lot of legal advisors, and all of that is very time and money consuming. So I would say, things are, it's not that easy. But this is, the whole team is, of course, spending a lot of time tackling those issues head on.
Sure. I mean, it's not easy and there are a lot of challenges, but changing the world also creates so many different opportunities. And I have spent time in Ambrosus communities, and it seems that there's a lot of excitement about your tokenomics model as well. I mean, can you offer an overview for anyone that's never heard of it before, the tokenomics model, and how they can get involved?
Yes, on the Amber Crypto Economics, actually, we're releasing a new update. I think it will coincide with the onboarding of masternodes newsletter, which is in about 10 days on the 3rd of September. I will need to check with the rest of the cryptoeconomic team. So it's myself, Vlad, Roger, Anthony, and Marek who are kind of building it together with consultation of others. But basically, we're going to release an updated cryptoeconomic model after we've run some simulations, we've run some modeling, kind of financial modeling, and tested a lot of our assumptions. And we've also listened to the feedback that people gave. So one good thing about having, of course, a big community is that it's kind of a constant stream of crowdsourcing. So some people made some calculations, and we thought about this. The biggest challenge of the cryptoeconomics is also how do you devise framework, and how do you align incentives in such a way that it fits both your corporate clients and your crypto community. And again, that's no easy feat. So some people think, just play around with numbers a bit and, that's it, it's ready. It's not. Also months and months of, again, Roger Wattenhofer, whom we have as solutions architect, he is head of a distributed computing lab at ETH Zurich, and he's one of the top suspects in the world to be Satoshi, by the way. So but all jokes aside, he's one of the world's most prominent scientists on blockchain, and he's been researching he's been researching distributed computing for about 35 years, so way before blockchain even became a word. So even with having these people on board, it's still not easy. So we're all brainstorming, testing different models and so on. So we believe we found a solution that can better align the cryptoeconomic model with the interests of the community itself, with people running the nodes. So I would encourage, I don't want to kind of share too many details right now because we're literally drafting the updated cryptoeconomics now. But importantly, we will focus on the community, as I said. So people who are waiting to onboard with master nodes, there have been concerns about how long it's going to take to onboard everybody. So that's going to be the first problem that I believe will be definitely solved with the updated cryptoeconomics. The second question was about how exactly are the incentives aligned in this model between Atlas holders and Apollo holders. There were some misconceptions about Hermes nodes. So we will clarify all this. I can clarify something on the Hermes nodes right now briefly. So it's clear from the cryptoeconomic model that rewards from the network are captured by Atlas nodes who are providing storage, or Apollo nodes who serve as validators. So these nodes literally get transaction fees from the activities on the network. We've designed a system in such a way with the updated cryptoeconomics that now Atlas nodes will also be getting part of the transactions fees on the network, so I can share that part. I don't think it's been shared yet, so that's new. So Atlas nodes will also be capturing part of the transaction fees on the network alongside with Apollos. In addition to bundles, because there were some concerns amongst people, okay, how many bundles are enough? And they compared that the number of transactions that VeChain has today is compatible with only 10 bundles of AMBnet. So we've redesigned that part to make sure that it actually is, more favorable to node holders. And another part that I want to clarify is the Hermes. So some people say Hermes nodes are not interesting for the community. An interesting point here is that, yes, it's true that from the cryptoeconomic model itself, Hermes paying for producing data. But what's important is that Hermes has a fixed price vis-a-vis AMBnet, which is actually quoted as $12. So it's going to be converted to Amber, but at the prevailing rate. But there is a fixed price for how much a network requires for a bundle. And we're talking right now to consultancy firms, to IT service providers, or to any other companies that are usually at the intersection of tech and consultancy, who could run a Hermes node and provide additional services. Maybe they could provide APIs, maybe they could host the Hermes node, or maybe they could provide technology consultancy on top of that. And what they can do on their side is that they could take our node and charge people 5 times more for doing those transactions. Why? Because they might provide additional services for the businesses who don't want to host their own node. And there are quite a lot of stakeholders who told us, can you give it to us as a service? So what Hermes nodes will be able to do is actually to enable people who own them to collect transactions from others. If necessary, they can price it at whatever level. Of course, there's going to be a free market. So if somebody comes up and charges ridiculous prices on their Hermes node, somebody else may come along and say, hey, I'm going to do it for half that price. But anyway, there will be kind of a market equilibrium that will bring the prices down to the natural levels. So from that perspective, Hermes is also, maybe it's not interesting to the average Joe who just wants to run a node, but it's definitely not an uninteresting option for the broader community. And finally, in terms of the distribution of rewards, there will be kind of a major update to that part, which is going to be in the interest of people running nodes, basically. So yeah, there's a lot of interesting stuff that's coming up on the crypto economics part. But I guess to finally answer your question, I did kind of a short overview and updates for the people who know what we've had so far. But for people who are new, I will just say this, that AMBnet rewards people for providing either network integrity for AMBnet or for providing resilient peer-to-peer data storage. So they provide a service on the network. They have to run it in a virtual environment on a cloud server that they can rent from Amazon, Google, DigitalOcean, or whatever else. And by providing this service, and by providing the stake in the node, so the stake is needed to make sure that the behavior is going to be honest, because if the behavior is not honest, or if the node is not doing a good job, the stake can be lost. But if the utility is provided and the service is provided to the network, they get rewards from the network, either for processing the data, as is the case in Apollo, or for having data available upon request for Atlas nodes. So this is the basic incentives mechanism in our platform. We've created it in such a way that we make the network resilient because everybody is incentivized to provide the services. And those actors in the network who see something suspicious going on, who believe that one of the nodes is cheating, they can directly challenge that node to provide reaffirmation that they are behaving honestly, and they store all the original data, and they can compare it with all the other nodes. And if it's discovered that the data is either unavailable or incorrect, the person who challenges the node can literally take their deposit as a reward for disclosing dishonest behavior. So we've built basically an incentive model in such a way that honest behavior is encouraged and rewarded, and bad behavior is punished.
Fantastic. So much valuable information in what you just said there. And I can almost hear communities that are alive and dissecting that information. It's so valuable. And as someone that does frequent Reddit groups and Telegram conversations on so many different projects, there does seem to be sometimes a slight disconnect between early investors or early believers and early adopters that have bought into projects when the prices were high and now expect instant results. But of course, as we all know, unfortunately, life and business is just not like that. However, for teams involved in the projects themselves, they're not motivated by quick successes or making it quick, easy cash. It's about building a solution for the future and ensuring that it is that game changer that they set out to achieve. So as someone working inside that space, I'm curious, do you feel any of that pressure from your own community? And is it difficult to focus on your life's work when others are looking for short-term gains?
Well, it's true that there are a lot of expectations. We've been communicating ever since we literally started communicating on the project that this is not an investment. Don't treat it as a stock. It's not a stock, and everything that's been done was kind of reinforcing that notion. So the first thing we actually persistently inform the people is that you are not investors, this is not an investment. So we are building the platform as we promised, and we're building a utility for the token that is ingrained. So the token is an integral part of this platform. Without it, you cannot deliver any services, and you cannot run the incentive model for the nodes. So of course, a lot of people are still treating it, hey, where I'm gonna make my money, and those who bought it at the top, well, bad luck for them, I guess, because we're literally following the markets of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. So this is, the team itself cannot do much. I think we sometimes get ridiculous requests from people like, hey, when we have a technical AMA session, we sometimes get questions, when the price is going to up, can you do something to help the price, and so on. We say, look, we're here to answer the technical questions about the product, about the platform, about adoption, about anything, but we're not here to discuss, A, we don't influence the price, we don't push the price for any reason, and B, the point is that we're delivering the platform that we've set out to deliver from the beginning. So a lot of people have a hard time reconciling that, but I think on our side, the community who've been following us for quite some time, yes, they may not be happy about the fact that the crypto prices are 80-90% down, but what they are happy about is the fact that we deliver. So what we promise, it comes true. What we set out to do, we are actually bringing more products to life these days than what we initially set out to do. So from that perspective, we're literally focused on creating the technology backbone and all the tools and all this stuff is actually, we're putting it on GitHub as soon as it's finished. So people can check and compare how much new stuff we've produced compared to some other projects, many of which are way higher in the coin market cap. So talking about these prices, in my opinion, in crypto markets in general, technology fundamentals and price action of the token are entirely disconnected and are usually inverse. What this means is that a lot of projects that don't have much inside, their token price is just going higher and higher, whereas projects with a lot of substance are, not necessarily seeing price action. There are a lot of reasons for that, which I will not go into, but this is pretty clear to any observant. And I used to run funds for cryptocurrencies in the past, and I would assess projects. And these days, I say, the picture is absolutely distorted because basically nobody is investing in the proper sense of the word investing. Everybody's speculating. So people, like in a normal investment world, you literally look at the fundamentals. You look at, is this team and product, does it have the fundamental opportunity to create a valuable solution in the future and get adoption? This is how it used to be assessed. And in crypto, it's speculators who are only looking at the price. Is the price going to go up? So a lot of analysis I see is literally people saying, oh, I think the price for that is going to go up. Even if they're talking about a coin that everybody is calling crap, everybody's saying it's crap, but we expect the price to go up. So this obviously shows you that there is something wrong with markets. I mean, it's not news, but I think this is linking to that discussion. So on our side, what we can do is to simply carry on as a team. I think we have already demonstrated very well to our community. So as you said, teams in crypto are not necessarily susceptible to short-term stuff and they look long-term. I would actually not agree with that fully, because there are a lot of teams who literally, after launching an ICO or maybe a few months later, when the first vesting or lockup is coming to ripe, they use that opportunity to cash out and get some money. On our side, our team has been the opposite. We have locked up the tokens for additional periods of time to demonstrate to people that actually we're doubling down. So if it's all going to go down, the biggest loser is going to be ourselves anyway, from the perspective of Amber, because the team is the biggest holder of Amber. And we say we're going to play big. We believe in what we're saying, and we've locked up our tokens. And it's the second time this autumn that we're very likely to lock up our tokens again. So from that perspective, we can, if people are still not confident, or if we're saying that, we still have to build this stuff, it's not yet time to do that, we can lock it up again. And I think, yes, there are some actors who are with short-term vision who would like to cash out. And it's true that some of the advisors, for example, on our side are saying, hey, just let me cash out and so on. So that's the funny thing, that some people have a pretty kind of short-termistic vision on stuff, where they just say, I'm just here for the money ride. But the team on our side, we say we don't mind going for the long term. And of course, very often it's hard, especially when the prices are crashing, the community is very negative. There is, a lot of kind of depressed mood and so on. The team is very active in talking to the community. We hold a lot of AMAs, we hold a lot of sessions on Reddit. We talk to people in chats on forums. So our team is actually, despite their huge and busy schedules, they are engaging the community very often. So we try and make sure we keep people updated. And we have a lot of meetups, many of which we are trying to live stream whenever we can. So from that perspective, the channels of communication between our team and the community, I want to believe so, are very good. So we are always trying to keep everybody up to date and to be transparent about what's happening and what the next plans are and so on. But the challenge is, of course, as I mentioned earlier, is that we're dealing with secretive companies in the pharma sector and the big food companies who don't like at all having the spotlight. So actually this becomes one of the biggest fundamental difficulties for our team. How do we communicate whilst on the one hand preserving all the confidential and strategic information of the companies we're working with, and on the other hand keeping a community that almost wants, as I say, daily updates updated on that. And this has been a very difficult part for us, and we don't know how to efficiently solve it, because either party is going to be unhappy. If we communicate too much, companies we work with are going to say, not great, we're going to work with a company that can keep its mouth shut. And on the other hand, of course, if we don't update the community or keep saying, it's under NDAs, I know the community is already, sick of that word, but what can we do? So yeah, that's never easy, of course. But once again, I think what we're showing is that people should look at our actions. If we're locking up our own tokens, and if we're doing that for the second time, we could have cashed out half of them already, by the initial schedule, and we haven't. I think they should look at that and say, well, if these guys are doing this, at the very least, they believe in what they're saying.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And I really do think we need to move away from that short-term view of everything and start concentrating on, are you engaging with the community? Yes, you guys are. Are you delivering on your promises? Which, again, you are. So looking forward to the future, what are the most significant points on your roadmap for the next 6 to 12 months that listeners actually need to be looking out for?
Yes, so in the short term, so the next few months, I would say the proper rollout and kind of industrial grade rollout of AMBnet, that's the most important technical milestone we're looking at. Currently we're looking to have the industrial version rolled out by the end of the year. And what industrial version means is that it's the blockchain coupled with distributed storage, coupled with the protocols for sensors, coupled with all the tools for linking all the hardware devices possible in the supply chain to the network, and the network guaranteeing 99.9% uptime. So what this means is that this is what we mean by the industrial grade, because in the industry there is a certain requirement that the network basically always has to be up, and actually when the first node is not up, you've got to have multiple others serving as backup. So you would have to have something like, I don't know, a hurricane or any other major disaster for your network not to work. But excluding those, this is the expected uptime from the industry. And this is also why they are struggling to use the public networks like Ethereum or Bitcoin these days, because the uptime over there or the speed is not guaranteed. So we have, on AMBnet, we have created this innovation with these bundles, because a bundle, as the name suggests, it actually merges multiple transactions together, 16,000 to be precise. So what is one transaction on the blockchain is storing 16,000 smaller transactions on the distributed storage. So we have the same throughput as a proof of authority network on Ethereum, which is about 50 transactions per second, I think. However, those transactions are bundles, so you can multiply 50 by 16,000 and you get about 800,000 or 900,000 transactions per second, which we de facto can process. So this gives huge, of course, scalability solution, coupling on-chain and off-chain, kind of on-chain and off-chain mechanisms. But what's important for the company is that we can also with that, so it's fast throughput, and because there is fast throughput, we can literally connect multiple nodes to be available, and there is therefore a guaranteed uptime for the network. So this is the first kind of technical milestone. The other milestones in the next 12 months, we want to have obviously more public partnerships, so kind of demonstrated adoption. So with many companies, we're now at the stages where we've delivered to them. Actually, a lot of companies we have seen, I will not name them, but there are some companies who are jumping around, shouting partnership with some company they have. And if you look deeper, their partnership is literally nothing else than some kind of a promise to explore blockchain technologies together. It's not a real partnership, but they call it so. So on our side, we have actually delivered technology solutions to the corporates. And we're now negotiating for actually making a commercial partnership, a long-term commercial partnership with them. So the goal is that in the next 12 months we will, and of course we're pushing for those to be public. So the goal for us is to make sure that we can show to people that, okay, up to now, maybe some other projects have been surviving on hype, but right now it's actually time to reveal our cards and we will see who's got what. So this is the next objective for the next 12 months, is to get proper adoption and so on. And the third part that we want to definitely within the next 6 to 12 months to have fully built and implemented is we want to enable basically building an ecosystem around Ambrosus. We've already been doing that, but not in a very kind of, we didn't have it streamlined. We just had some, competitions to create a DApp here or there or community contest, but we want to create a better process for people to launch their dApps or apps on top of AMBnet and to reward them for that. And we're looking also at the possibility to actually let those projects launch ICOs on top of AMBnet. So we also want people to make use of the general purpose platform that we have, which obviously also has the capacity to run ICOs. So we right now are in legal discussions. Of course, legal is always the key element. We're discussing with lawyers about how to make it compliant, what are the possible risks and challenges, and we're looking at solving those. But importantly, we want to enable different entrepreneurs who see the vision of Ambrosus and who could contribute something that's close to what we do to launch their ICOs if necessary on top of our platform. And the interesting part of that is, of course, some people will say, well, okay, what are the differences between launching an ICO on Ethereum or on Stellar, or VeChain is now trying to launch an ICO? And the difference will be as follows. On AMBnet, there are a bunch of protocols specifically designed to blockchain, for blockchain to IoT communication or blockchain to sensor communication. So we could focus on those projects that do make use of hardware that specifically derive the value of their project from having the sensor generated data available. And this is something that no other blockchain can be helpful because they're blockchains, as the name suggests. They are not tailored to IoT communication. And here we could have a unique value proposition saying to projects that if you work with hardware or IoT and you want to make use of blockchain, come to us and we can help you both operationally and we can support you on that front and so on. So this is also the goal that in 12 months, I want to have that ecosystem already growing, and I want to have several projects who have already launched their ICOs on top of AMBnet, thus reinforcing our ecosystem and making the value proposition stronger.
Wow, it sounds like you've got an incredibly exciting future ahead of you there. And there's so many teasers that you drop there as well that's going to be sparking quite a few conversations amongst the communities, I'm sure of it. So a big thank you for coming on today. But before I do let you go, could you just point the listeners in the right direction of where they can learn more about Ambrosus and also read white papers, download roadmaps, or check out the tokenomics model and how it works and how to sign up to that newsletter as well?
Yeah, so all of the stuff that you've mentioned, it's on our blog. So it's blog.ambrosus.com, which we have used, I think, for the past, well, definitely the whole this year. All the new communications on the technical development and so on, they've been done through a blog. So there you will have the articles on cryptoeconomics. There you will have a roadmap for AMBnet and all this information. So it's not in the white paper because this is new information. So this is the best source for people to consult. We also still have a white paper, I think, on our website. So if it's on ambrosus.com and then the tab is called Documents. I think our web team is also working these days to put back some of the technical papers we've previously had. Maybe we will take this opportunity to update them slightly. But we did have multiple kind of technical documents that are talking about either sensor systems or about traceability. So I think once those papers are updated, they'll be on the website. But for the time being, I would say the best place to learn about the project is definitely the blog. Actually, I think that is the best source. Yeah, other sources are kind of repeating what the blog says or are distilling that information. If people have any specific questions, they're welcome to also, of course, post it on Reddit or elsewhere. And one of our team members will answer. We have also admins in our Telegram chat. So definitely any questions people can ask. And it's not a priority task, but it's one of the tasks to do for us is to maybe have a yellow paper, so to say, being published in the foreseeable future where we, update and make a more comprehensive technical overview of the platform and of the stack, because right now all this information is kind of thrown around different places. So we want to put it all together in the same place and collating the data from GitHub and elsewhere. And for the more technically minded people, they should look at tech.ambrosus.com. That's a secondary website we have. I don't think it's very famous, but it's for developers specifically. So for people who want to do a deep dive into the technology, and they should visit tech.ambrosus.com. And of course, they can check out our GitHub, where most of the stuff from AMBnet, it's already publicly available. So everybody can set up their own node, people can play around with it, modify it, and so on.
Fantastic. I really do think that the blockchain and crypto industries are really beginning to mature now, and there's a much, much stronger on real-world solutions for a Web 3.0 era. What really fascinated me from listening to you today is we've got communities that are demanding partnerships, and as a result, some projects are hyping partnerships that don't even actually exist, and those that have real partnerships, the companies don't want to be in the limelight, and it represents so many different challenges there. But again, I think the more we look at the long-term view, that's where the real value is, and that's where you guys are focusing. So a big thank you for coming on today, Angel, and sharing your story.
Likewise, thank you very much for inviting me.
Essentially, Ambrosus is building an ecosystem where blockchains can talk to sensors to assure the quality of products. And this is where we get into the realms of data integrity, digitalisation of supply chains, and blockchain-ready hardware are their specialities at Ambrosus. Thanks to this open source and community-driven development of independent distributed platform, the Ambrosus network enjoys a rapidly growing number of applications, tools and solutions. And of course, at the heart of all that is their digital token, AMB, AMB, and that serves as the fuel powering this ecosystem and community. And we've all seen examples of our ICO culture means that anyone can set up a website, a Twitter, a shoddy white paper, and then ask the world to gamble on your half-baked idea without a way to fund the infrastructure. And a friend of mine called Callie recently wrote a great article on that exact topic. And the only reason I mention that is, for me, Ambrosus is an exciting project that is navigating these uncharted digital waters in the right way. And why I'm excited about the future of Ambrosus? There is a real world need for this technology, and the scope for the entire food and pharma industry is huge. And my big takeaways from the conversation with Angel today was how we see the world of crypto and how it conflicts with how it really works. As investors, we're speculating and demanding instant results, and the world is not like that. And complex regulatory requirements, especially in pharmaceutical industry, for example, means you cannot get instant gratification even though we all crave it. And when scrolling down CoinMarketCap, the reality is that many of those scam coins or projects that are having their tokens shilled or their price manipulated, they look better than real-world solutions and good projects. And also, as investors or early adopters, users are demanding partnerships. But those shouting about them don't actually have them. And the companies that are doing really, really well in this space that have fantastic projects cannot shout about them because the big companies don't want the limelight. So maybe we all need to be a little more patient and understand that this isn't about fueling rocket ships and landing on the moon. It's about reshaping the world through technology. And it takes time. But man, isn't that something to be excited about and a part of? But enough of my impassioned rants. You've heard my views and you've heard Angel display his vision of the future too. But now I pass the virtual baton over to you. So email me, techblogwriter@outlook.com, or tweet me at Neil C. Hughes. So a huge thanks for listening to me today. We have some big names from the world of technology coming on this daily podcast over the next few weeks. So I hope you'll stick around. But until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thanks for listening to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. Until next time, remember, technology is best when it brings people together.